I've been waiting to share this one with you for a long time. In fact, this may be the most important podcast you've ever listened to. It is the podcast that helped me get married. It's going to help you get married. Stick around to find out why. My name is Evan Mark Katz. This is the Love You Podcast. I thank you so much in advance for listening, for subscribing, for supporting. It means the world to me that we have over 3 million downloads at this point in the podcast career. If you are not already subscribing, go to Apple, go to Spotify, leave us a positive review, leave us a comment on YouTube. I look and I respond. Sometimes the comments I don't even want to respond to because I'm that kind of guy. But I really want you to stick around to the end of this podcast because there's really important stuff that we're talking about today. And I like the metaphor that we're going to use to frame this, throwing out the rule book in your head. Before we get started, I want to remind you about the Extraordinary Love series. It is a live Zoom call. Over 600 registered so far. The topic, the difference between chemistry and compatibility. We'll do a half-hour lecture, half-hour Q&A on the topic of chemistry versus compatibility. Oh my God, I'm going to sink my teeth into that one. I really hope to see you there. And so I don't want to belabor this. Podcasts have been running long because I tend to ramble. You know this. So I'm going to try to bring it in closer to 15 minutes. We'll see if I succeed. Talking with a beloved client who is an amazing student, right? And it's uncomfortable calling myself a teacher. I made up a job called dating coach, but I teach people things, and so the people who come to me are students, and the people who do the best are the ones who are the best students, right? The women who get straight A's in school tend to do really, really well here. She watches the Love You videos, right? A half-hour video a week. She attends the weekly group coaching sessions. She always asks really incisive questions. She points out contradictions that don't make sense. I love working with her, and she's going to make some guy really happy one day. And yet I noticed that she has a tendency that a lot of other women who come to me have as well. It's to have a made-up set of rules in her head about how a guy is supposed to act. To be clear, it's not that her ideas or opinions are wrong. I don't tend not to traffic too much in right and wrong. I talk a lot about effective versus ineffective. But my point is that someone who holds a different opinion about how things work, he's not necessarily wrong either. And so maybe we're talking about throwing out the rule book, but we're really talking about removing the word wrong. Someone who disagrees with you is not necessarily wrong. They could just disagree with you. And we could take a concept that's really simple. My favorite color is blue. Your favorite color is red. That doesn't mean that either of us is wrong. And we could extend this to almost all behavioral things unless it's something that's objectively wrong. Shooting someone who's unarmed is wrong. Sexual assault is wrong. There's things that are like objectively wrong. But most things are more opinion-based. So here's a few things that she told me in just the weeks of working together that she thinks he should be like. He should be the same religion as her. He shouldn't ever let her split the check. He shouldn't be friends with his ex. He shouldn't, and this is a story that just came in the other day, he shouldn't send a photo of himself shirtless with his teenage daughter in a bikini on his boat. He should not do that. So we could spend an entire Love You podcast episode on any one of these and turn it into 15 minutes of fodder. But let me be clear. These are subjective things that are judgment calls where there is no clear right and wrong. They should definitely not be deal breakers. How do I know? Because I could probably be accused of doing any of these things, right? It makes it sound like I would be a terrible husband to everybody, but I'm a Jewish atheist. You're not going to find many people who are the same religion as I am. I have let, especially when I had no money, let women go Dutch with me or alternate checks. I'm friends with plenty of exes, or at least I used to be when I was younger. Now that I'm married for 17 years, I don't have as many exes. And I've never really been shy about sending photos of myself. I don't think that's a big deal. So all these things that my client has said have violated her sensibilities are all things that her dating coach has done. And I'm not a bad guy, I swear. Whatever you think, not a bad guy. So if you're listening and you're frustrated with what I'm sharing with you, right, just those 4 bullet points, you definitely want to listen to the rest of what I have to say, which is that you have to throw out this made-up rule book in your head. And if I were coaching men, I'd tell them the exact same thing. Again, this is not telling women that they should do that's different than men. This is everybody. We've created and cultivated this world where everybody agrees with us, and any disagreement is a sign of incompatibility. So the rule book is a collection of beliefs that people often carry about how a guy should behave in order to be considered right. And it's based on values and expectations and a certain emotional wiring, but it is not by any means an objective truth about how a relationship works or what makes a man a good partner. So I wanted to provide very quickly 6 examples of male behavior that might violate your internal rule book, but are definitely not wrong. They are just different. And I'm not even talking about things in my marriage, because we could talk about my wife and I's and my different opinions on things in the context of this really happy marriage. And you've heard that in other podcasts. But here's 6 things that just kind of leapt to mind. He doesn't text good morning or good night. So the rule book in your head says, well, if he cared, he would text me because I text him good morning and good night. He should do what I do if he loved me. And the reality is, he might not be into texting. He might think texting should have a purpose. It's not just about sweet nothings. It's, for guys, sometimes it's not about connection. It's about conveying information. It's a common difference between men and women. So just because he doesn't text you good morning or good night doesn't mean he loves you any less. He's just not a guy who texts good morning or good night. Now again, if I'm coaching him and I say she wants you to text good morning or good night, it would cost you nothing to do so. If I'm coaching him, I'm telling him to do it. But just because he doesn't do it naturally doesn't make him a bad person or a bad partner. Number 2, he doesn't post about the relationship on social media. Right? The rule book in your head says he must have issues. He must be hiding me. He must be embarrassed about me. He doesn't want to go public. Maybe he's got someone else on the side. And the reality is maybe he's just not active on social. Maybe he likes to keep a private part private. Maybe he knows that relationships often come and go and doesn't need to have his social media be a stream of failed relationships like a lot of people's social media is. Doesn't have to be a red flag. Could be. I'm not saying it's not possible. But a guy who doesn't post on social is not that bad, nor unusual, nor wrong. Number 3, he doesn't say I love you as often. Right? The rule book in your head says he should be. I do. Well, here, now I'm involved. Evan's involved. I say I love you to my wife probably 15 times more than she says it to me, because I am in the love languages. I'm a words of affirmation guy. I'm a words person, if it's not too obvious. So my wife actually functions more like a typical guy when it comes to love languages. She's an acts of service person, right? She does things for me that demonstrate she loves me. And that's a very typical male love language. It's doing for you to demonstrate love. So if a guy does a whole bunch of things to demonstrate he loves you, but he doesn't vocalize it as much, doesn't mean he's wrong. Just means he's different. Right. Number 4, he doesn't remember every detail that you share. Right. The story is, if he really cared about me, he would remember everything. Not true at all. My wife could tell you what I was wearing the night we met. I could not tell you much of anything. My memory is just kind of shot. But that's not about her. That's about what we individually value and pay attention to. So he might be present in the moment, but the detail doesn't sear itself on his brain the same way it does with yours. Right? I'm not defending men who don't care about your inner life or men who are dismissive and don't listen to you. I'm not defending that. I'm saying that remembering certain details, while it is an asset to a guy as a way of connecting and being human, does not completely devalue him as a person or a partner if he doesn't remember all the things that you remember that you think are important. And what you probably can't calculate is there's things that he thinks are important that you don't value as much. We're not talking about those today, but they're true too. And you'd probably want him to get off of the idea that he's trying to mold you into be the female version of him. Number 5, he takes longer to commit than you want. Right? The rule book in your head says he should know by now. Not necessarily true. Maybe you're wildly attracted to some guy on date 2. You immediately want him to be your boyfriend, but you're one of 4 people he's dating right now, and he doesn't know who he likes the most. That's perfectly fair. Maybe you decided after 1 month, this is the man I want to marry. Maybe he's dove into relationships too quickly and made some mistakes by diving in too quickly and really wants to be a little more cautious before he overcommits or says I love you or moves in or proposes to you. That was me. Right? I said I love you to virtual strangers after 3 dates. I learned that lesson. Then it took me like 6 months to say it. Same guy, just more cautious. Right? I did not know my wife was the one. She didn't know I was the one either, to be fair, but just because someone's working at a different pace than you doesn't mean their pace is inherently wrong. It means you want clarity, but he's not wrong for not having clarity. How do I know this? Because I've got clients who've got guys who are more in love with them, and they need more time to catch up. And my clients aren't wrong because he's wildly in love with her and she needs a little more time to figure it out. So we got to remove the idea that someone's wrong for thinking differently. Number 6, he's not into the same stuff, books, movies, hobbies. Right? The idea is that compatibility is we like the same things. Also not necessarily true. It's more about how does he treat you, how does he make you feel. It's not, right? Like my wife is not into politics like I'm into politics. My wife isn't into sports like I'm into sports. Does not matter. Right? And it would be somewhat narcissistic to think that she should be into those things for us to be compatible. We're compatible for so many other reasons, but we are allowed to have our separate things. It's not personal. So each of these examples is a shift from judgment, he's doing it wrong, he's wrong, we're incompatible, to something that's more curious. Right? Oh, this person thinks differently. What do I make of this? Does this have to be a problem? Or am I creating a problem where there actually is one, or where there isn't one? Because once you drop the rule book, it kind of opens up a lot of things. You could open up to this wide lane of men who are not your bullet point by bullet point clone, but he's pulling for you. He's on the same team as you. The same way that at a company they have the guy, they'll have, not the guy, the person who's the leader at the company, right? And they're sort of a director, and then there's someone who's a little more creative, and then there's someone who's more of a, bookkeeper, anal type, and then there's someone who's the support staff, and it takes all of that to make a team, right? A marriage is essentially a team. So the person doesn't have to be just like you to be a really valuable, complementary part of the same team. So when I share this with you, right, it sounds a little finger waggy. Hey, get off of these ideas. I was the same way. That's fine. Talk about my own dating or relationship mistakes. Here's my list. I wrote it down specifically for the occasion. When I was single and I was going out with hundreds of people, I thought she should be a creative just like me. She should be a writer or a photographer or a musician. I find that really attractive in someone. She should also be athletic and outdoorsy, right? I'm not that athletic. I'm athletic, but I'm not that outdoorsy. I would love to be with someone who is a triathlete or a hiker or a biker or someone who knew of a river to kayak on. That would be a great addition to my life. Right? I wanted that in a partner. She should be highly productive, purpose-driven. That's me. Very disciplined. Right? 1,000 blog posts, 400 podcasts. Get into the office, stay until the very end of the day, never take time off. Right? I thought that's the way to be. It's productive, purposeful. Right? I already mentioned I like the idea that someone is really well-read, politically engaged, on the same side of the aisle, passionate. Right? And a very common thing with people who listen to podcasts like this, that person should really be into personal growth, introspection, deep conversations, because that's who I am at my core. That's why I do this for a living. And I do love this. Right? You know the end of the story. I threw out that rule book, chose an incredible human being, built an amazing marriage, and I've discovered that, God, I'm going to cry. Similarity and compatibility are two very different things. There's context to this. I'm not going to get into it right now. So, Since it's hard to break out of your patterns by yourself, this is what we do together in Love You. After working with me, you will find more quality men, right? And to bring it back home from where I started, the client that I mentioned at the beginning who has a pretty big rule book in her head is going on another date with the guy who sent the picture of him and his daughter on his boat. I'm excited for her. I don't know what's going to happen with him and his daughter and his boat, but I think it's great that she's giving the opportunity a chance. And whatever happens, happens. But she's not going to break off with him for no actual real reason other than, I don't like that thing, I wouldn't do that thing. My name is Evan Mark Katz. This is the Love You podcast. I thank you for listening. I thank you for challenging yourself to let go of the rule book in your head, to open up to possibility. Almost every couple that I know that is happy let go of something that they previously thought was important, whether it was height or weight or age or religion or income. It doesn't mean we go far to the other end of the spectrum for all you black and white thinkers, right? Letting go of money doesn't mean you go out with a guy who's poor. Letting go of weight doesn't mean you're dating a guy who's morbidly obese. Please understand there's a lot of gray in this area, right? But the rule book in your head goes beyond that. It's these tiny, tiny behavioral things that we think, I don't know, are wrong, that we think are the ick. And I'm telling you, love is so much, much bigger than that. You definitely do not want to let those things get in the way. So, thank you for joining me. Go to evanmarkkatz.com/now to apply for coaching, and we'll have a conversation. If you haven't subscribed to the Extraordinary Love Series, go to extraordinaryloveseries.com. Next month, the difference between chemistry and compatibility. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks. Bye-bye.